To help us unpack it all is Dr. James M. Dorsey, adjunct senior fellow of the S. Rajaratnam School of International Studies. Thank you for joining us today. When the attack happened on the 7th of October, many were stunned by its savagery and also by the fact that it happened at all. Israel's intelligence services are legendary. What went wrong? Where was its biggest failure?
I think there were several failures. The first failure was that the status quo was sustainable, that there would not be some sort of outburst. The second failure was an underestimation of Hamas. And the third failure was that the focus was on the West Bank, where you had a burgeoning armed resistance. And that was what posed at that moment the foremost threat as far as the Israelis were concerned.
Well, the dust is far from settled as sort of fighting continues, but where has the finger of blame for Israel's security forces been pointing? Is the unity government still united under Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu?
Israeli governments have not survived longer than 6 months. By and large, if you look at every major war that Israel has fought, whether that's the 1973 Middle East War or the 1982 invasion of Lebanon. Benjamin Netanyahu is widely held by the Israeli public as having been responsible for this intelligence and military failure. He has so far refused to take that responsibility and sort of tried to push it off on the military, on the reservists, on the intelligence. I think that his days are numbered. What may very well happen, and that depends on the course of the war, that the knives that are out for Benjamin Netanyahu will remain on the table until the fighting ends. But once the fighting ends, you get into an investigation into what happened, as you've had after other Israeli wars. And at that point, Benjamin Netanyahu's days are numbered.
Hamas's underground tunnel network has been described as one of the most elaborate underground webs in the world. The Israeli military, though, has said that it has, quote, unique solutions to dismantle them. Can you give us a sense of what these solutions might be?
Well, time will tell whether they have it or not. This is the most vicious kind of fighting that a military can engage in. And clearly, Hamas is prepared for it. In addition to which, of course, the taking out of the tunnels is hindered by the fact that that's also where the hostages are, to the degree that that's going to be a real concern in Israeli military strategy. What one assumes that they will do is try and use unmanned weaponry, drones, robots. The problem is that drones and robots can't distinguish between Hamas fighters or other fighters and hostages that may be held there. They may very well try and flood the tunnels to the degree that they can, but again, there's no distinction between who gets flooded. And the same is true for using more traditional, if you wish, buster bombs. Huge bombs that just take out the whole thing. So the Israelis really don't have a lot of good options. On top of which, I think that right now they're fighting either in areas that they've cleared by the devastating bombing that is taking place, or in more rural areas. They haven't entered areas with narrow streets, multiple buildings, and that's when I think that going is really going to get rough.
Yeah, the Israeli army said its land assault on the Gaza Strip had on Sunday split the Palestinian territory in two, with significant strikes continuing in its war against Hamas. What is Israel's strategy here? Why the clear separation between the north and the south?
In a sense, your guess is as good as mine. With other words, they have not made that clear, and it may very well be that that's by design rather than by default. clearly, they believe that the main structures of Hamas are in the north of Gaza, and that's one reason to cut it off. What they want to do with the north is again unclear. Do they want to create that into a permanent buffer zone and push the Palestinian population of Gaza in its total towards the south? Again, it's not clear. You've had pronouncements by various members of the Israeli political elite calling for an expulsion of the Palestinians, temporary or more permanent, for example, into Egypt's Sinai desert peninsula. There are parts of the Israeli government, parts of the more extreme Israeli government that would want that to happen. Again, it's not Israeli government policy as such, but we don't know what the strategy is.
We have one more question for you before we have to wrap this up, and it's about an observation from one observer who has said that Hamas is getting even more popular in the West Bank because it's seen as taking a significant stand against Israeli occupation. What's your assessment?
I think that's probably true. I mean, the West Bank is ruled by an inefficient, corrupt administration in which Palestinians have long been frustrated with the fact that they have not delivered on public goods, or for that matter, on a peace settlement with, or some sort of settlement with Israel, which is the reason why you had a burgeoning armed resistance on the West Bank, in addition to, of course, the way Israel conducts itself. So, yes, Hamas's popularity is increasing on the West Bank as far as one can see. And we really don't know what the situation is in Gaza. In Gaza, its population was, its popularity was low prior to this war. Whether or not this has changed things, or whether or not the degree of resentment and bitterness that we're going to see coming out of Gaza after this reinforces Hamas, time will tell.
Still very much a lot of uncertainty. Thank you very much for taking the time to speak with us today. Dr. James Dorsey, James M. Dorsey, adjunct senior fellow at the S. Rajaratnam School of International Studies.